If you ever make the mistake of going outside of your home, you'll eventually run into people who have opinions. This is a problem, because undoubtedly you're going to get some advice that is so god-awful that your only recourse will be to punch them in the ear. Or believe it.
This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
I didn't start writing until about 6 years ago. I knew I wanted out of the job that I was currently in, and I needed something new to kind of take up my time and see if it was a direction I wanted to go in, because it was either going to be writing or it was going to be pursuing culinary art. And I still really think that I would love to be a chef at some point. I don't know how many incarnations this life of mine can take, though. I don't know. So I signed up for a class, we'll call it. I signed up for a class at a community college, and it just said writing, creative writing class. And it was not really, it was a night thing. It was under their continuing education program. It was just something to see if I could learn something from it. I joined this class, and there were probably about 8 of us in there, and the instructor, who was actually just the counselor at the community college who wanted to be a writer too. So pretty much just people kind of struggling, and it really turning into a critique group where we would bring our samples of our writing, read it aloud. You know, you get the idea. Anyway, so I brought a story that I've been working on, and I kind of had pushed myself to write something different. It was called Dandelions, and it was probably going to be my first attempt at a novel if I was going to do a novel. And it was about teenage suicide bombers who were going to blow up an Abercrombie & Fitch. And I may have told this story here before. So in the narrative of that story, I follow the shrapnel of the bomb as it explodes. And as it tears through each person that it kills, I give a little bit of a story. It had sort of a Run Lola Run feel to it. So it was just like these quick snippets of lives as they were being extinguished. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm being edgy or whatever. I don't know. I was just writing. But one of the people in the class was so disturbed by it that she gave me this bit of advice. She looked up from her paper and said, "This is disgusting. You should crumple this up and flush it down the toilet where it belongs." I'm not even exaggerating. That's exactly how it went down. And so I was like, oh, yeah, you're so right. I'm going to flush this down the toilet and write something worse. That's kind of how it went. It was something like that. Something hot-headed, but whatever. I think what I got from it was that, wow, she had this really visceral response. And I can get that out of people. Something, you know, it's a huge thing from being a psychotherapist is that you're always looking for that cathartic moment. And I was like, wow, you can do that with fiction? I am so going after this. I'm so going after it. I heard this story at my very first writers' conference. My first real writers' conference, my second group meeting of writers who were desperate. Chuck Palahniuk, who's a writer that I really respect just for being sort of irreverent and writing whatever the he wants. Chuck Palahniuk sent his manuscript into New York to his editor at the time, and they were like, hey, can you tone this down? There's too much here. This is too offensive. And he said when he got that back, he knew that what he really needed to do was drop the ream of paper into the gutter, pee on it, put it back in the box, and send it off to New York. He said because until his work is saturated in his own urine, it's not worth printing. I don't even know if that's a true story. I'm just telling you about it. Why it resonates for me is that if I could get my personality onto paper and get it into the right hands, I could do this. This could be a reality. And yeah, and it happened. It was exactly the advice I needed to hear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, bitter woman.